From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
The number of the day for the Kansas City Chiefs is 177. That is exactly how much cap space the Kansas City Chiefs possess at this current moment. On Monday afternoon, coming off of a weekend where they made an additional signing. We'll talk about that coming up in the next segment. But what it shows you is that this particular offseason is being run by the hair of their chinny chins. Everything and anything that they can get done has been brought all the way down to the bottom line. And sitting at $177, started at, I think it was $860K prior to the weekend. That is quite a change and shows just how much the Kansas City Chiefs are trying to get done. Now, that's not the only thing. That it also shows that there's just very, very little room to maneuver. We're going to talk in the next segment about the newest signing, an old friend returning. And then later we're going to talk about what it means for the draft in general for the Kansas City Chiefs. But a little bit of emphasis needs to be put on the fact that right now we're preparing for an NFL draft on time the last week of April. Is that really what's going to happen? Questions are starting to be raised about whether that draft will continue to come off on time. Now, there is a significant factor that the NFL has what they feel is a captive audience, for lack of a better term, because right now none of the other major sports are even competing in their seasons, which usually gets them market share, television viewers, etc., that the NFL always has to compete within their offseason. And really that is the highlight for them, being the NFL draft, that they can kind of grab the spotlight back. So for a sports fan base, particularly in the United States, but honestly worldwide, for the NFL to take advantage of that and try to, again, expand the brand, further the brand, get more recognition for the Shield, it makes sense from a business standpoint. But is it being done at the expense of actually having a valid change in organizations? A number of GMs have come out against this draft being performed on time, wanting to push it back at a minimum of a couple of weeks, but possibly even further. That has its own set of can of worms that once you open, that pushes everything else back. Right now, we have no idea about when OTAs might be able to be held. We have no idea what moving the draft back would do in terms of the overall schedule prior to training camp. And when you get to that point, looking at the possibility of not having any organized activities, possibly not having a team together until June, maybe even July for training camp, that puts a very different spin on what you're looking for in the offseason acquisitions. And I think that's what led primarily to what happened over the weekend, which we will talk about as soon as we get back. To get your copy of The Athletic Matrix, go to rogueapc.com and use the code LOC20 to get 25% off of your purchase of The Athletic Matrix Metrics Report for the 2020 NFL Draft. That's over at Rogue APC. That's ROGUEAPC.com, and get The Athletic Matrix today. To get fit in 2020, you don't have to join a gym or pay a ton for overpriced fitness equipment. The best way to get in the best shape of your life is with Echelon. Go to EchelonFit.com to discover their EX1 connected fitness bikes that offer a high-quality, at-home cycling experience in less than half the price for a Peloton. Echelon makes beautifully engineered products for everyone, busy moms and dads, first responders, and elite athletes. Whatever your activity level, they have something for you. And with daily live and on-demand studio classes right in your home, you'll never have to step foot in a gym. You'll love Echelon, but if you aren't 100% satisfied, we'll give you your money back. Don't pay a ton for Peloton. Buy an Echelon bike today for under $1,000. Go to EchelonFit.com/LONFL to learn more about their limited time free Apple iPad and complete details on their exclusive offer. Echelon, the time is yours. That's ECHELON Fit.com/LONFL. That's EchelonFit.com/LONFL. Now, what I mean, over the weekend, the Chiefs brought back Demarcus Robinson. Something that I freely admit I told you probably was never going to happen, because quite frankly, I expected his explosive plays to highlight what he's capable of. playing with Patrick Mahomes certainly doesn't hurt, but it does allow you to kind of showcase what you are able to do at the top of your game. Now, as we've spoken about, and you all probably know, that my concern about Demarcus Robinson has always been his consistency, his lack of performance at times, and having these spike games where he shows up and makes quite a splash. I will give him that. When he does have a game, he has good games. I thought that was going to garner him a lot more interest across the league. Now, maybe there is some hesitation to play into paying a player of that type, one that isn't grossly consistent, when you have such a deep wide receiver class in this upcoming draft. That could definitely be part of it. I would not put it past GMs to feel that way going into what is one of the bigger classes that I think we've seen in the last decade to get drafted. I think there's going to be quite a number of them. Whether they're really elite, I think that remains to be seen. I don't know that beyond a couple of players, I don't know that you can expect big breakouts from guys that are going to go second, third, fourth round. But they all have the upside for it, and that's why they will be taken on day 2 in particular, which I thought prior to this weekend was the sweet spot for the Kansas City Chiefs in looking at what they had to do, what they could have gotten done. Again, with the two big things having not happened yet with Sammy Watkins and Chris Jones, it does put a little bit of a stranglehold on what they're able to do now. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But what they've gone and done is really allowed themselves to not have to select a wide receiver in this draft if they don't want to. By getting Demarcus Robinson back right now, as it stands, you have a full wide receiver room. You have your Super Bowl wide receiver room back. Does it stay that way? We'll talk about that after the next break. But what it allows you to do is go into this draft having not secured more help at the cornerback position, having not secured more help at the linebacker position, having recently just lost Reggie Ragland. It does allow you that room. I do feel that that's still going to be a focus for them in this upcoming draft whenever it occurs. But it takes one thing off of the table, that you don't have to worry at this point about backfilling multiple wide receivers in order for Patrick Mahomes to have targets that he feels can exploit defenses. Now, not only is Demarcus Robinson's return mean that you have a receiver that he's familiar with, one that can function in the NFL. He's got that proven ability. Yes, he's had a couple of spike games, not that consistent, but can play every week at the NFL level. Byron Pringle is a guy coming up that I think would be in line for those snaps were Demarcus Robinson not on this roster. I do feel like he still has the upside to push for playing time, especially when you consider now that Demarcus Robinson should clearly be the number 4 as the roster sits right now. McCole Hardman has passed him by in terms of playing time, definitely in terms of impact on the outcomes of 2019, and certainly what we can expect for the outcomes in 2020. There are a number of younger guys that you thought might push for roster spots at the wide receiver position. Now, especially that Marcus Kemp seems to not be in their future plans. Maybe he is later down the line if he is fully recovered, that we could see him come back. But in his stead, you have a number of guys, Felton Davis, Jody Fortson, a number of young up-and-comers that are fighting for that 6th spot, a guy that could make it just based on special teams. Does Garrett Dieter make the roster again? There are times that he's looked to be helpful, particularly on special teams, and that's really what that position is. Wide receiver 6 is a special teams position. Yes, you could line up and take a couple of snaps, but you're primarily there to play special teams. That's just the way that it works out, particularly on this roster under Reed and Dave Tope. But that also allows you the opportunity now to not have to draft one with an eye to getting somebody to either upgrade your talent or push your talent in order to get snaps on the field in 2020. And that doesn't mean that they won't draft one. I do expect another target to come, especially when the Chiefs start trading around. I do feel that they will still trade back. So there still are a number of, especially lower down, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade round grades on wide receivers that I think could help, that can bolster your bottom line, can give you cheaper play for possibly the same production. But it won't be, they have to get one in the first 3 rounds any longer. Unless something, again, changes with Sammy Watkins in that situation, along with Chris Jones. And when we come back, we're going to dig a little bit more into that and what it means for the wide receiver group and Sammy Watkins in particular. Further implications that we have to look at, or what this means overall. As this signing for Demarcus Robinson happened over the weekend, I got a lot of questions, both on Twitter, on RGR Football, which, by the way, we'll have the Q&A on Monday nights. We have videos up over there. That's a YouTube channel from me, RGR Football on YouTube. And a lot of questions also on the athleticism that you can get at the Athletic Matrix through Rogue Analytics, and that's at Rogue APC, ROGUEAPC.com, to get your Athletic Matrix guide for this class. And it comes down to, really, athleticism is what Andy Reid is looking for. It's not a coincidence that Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, and Sammy Watkins all have speed that can dominate the vast majority, if not 99.9% of the defensive backs in the NFL. Speed is a premium that Andy Reid wants and Brett Veach is willing to pay for. And that is a powerful combination when they're the ones doing the evaluation and the recruiting. And yes, free agents do have to be recruited. That's how Sammy Watkins got here in the first place. And after you see that signing, and honestly, because of the new CBA, with Sammy out there in limbo and Demarcus Robinson not counting for his full base salary, his 1 year, 2.26, I think it was, only counting $1 million against the cap, that is quite a bit lower than you would have expected him to receive, which is, I thought, what had priced him out of the Kansas City market. The team may have thought that as well. And when he didn't get that value, and he's able to come back on what cost the team against the cap merely $1 million, which sounds like a lot to you and me, but is pennies compared to the $198 million salary cap and what these players have to do, especially when the Chiefs have carryover of 21. So you're talking about 119 or 219 total. So that makes him very, very cheap. In fact, he will be cheaper than even Mecole Hardman, I believe, this coming season in terms of base salary. So that's an added luxury you didn't see coming. And having that there, again, the one thing that Brett Veach has said back at the NFL Combine was that he was going to do was whatever he could to keep as many of the Chiefs players as he possibly could. To keep guys that got them that championship in order to try and have them help them get another championship. And I think that goes to show just how much he's thinking about that, how much he's efforting that. And I feel like the longer that this goes on, if they had wanted someone in free agency, if they had fallen in love with a free agent they just had to have, whether it was Chris Harris or Shelby Harris or somebody that they wanted to add in a position beyond Mike Pennell, beyond Mike Remmers, they could have done that. They could have made the decision to move on from Sammy, but they're making a concerted effort to keep the weapons that have worked for Pat Mahomes in town, and that means a negotiation. So the fact that Demarcus Robinson is back on the roster, I think actually makes a case to Sammy Watkins to come back to the roster, to stay on the roster, take a salary reduction, take either a restructure or an extension that dramatically lowers the money that he is due against the cap in 2020. I think that's a sign that they are as serious as they can and they're trying to take advantage of it. I don't feel, as some have asked, that because Demarcus Robinson has re-signed with the team, that means Sammy Watkins is on the way out, that it was one or the other. I don't think that's true at all. I think the low cost of the Robinson contract is honestly due to the fact that you don't have the normal draft process at your disposal. You can't have in-house visits. You can't have pro days. Chase Claypool is going to be a great fit for somebody. I think it'll be best at tight end. I think it would be great if it were tight end 2 behind Travis Kelce. But are they going to be able to pull that trigger? Having not been able to meet with him in person, having not been able to work him out, he's a guy that should be in the 3rd or 4th round, a value pick at the pass catcher position. And again, I would call it tight end rather than wide receiver. But that inability to do those in-person visits, yes, you can have Skype interviews, you can go through all your normal interview techniques, a whiteboard, etc. All the knowledge things that you want to do. It's about taking coaching at the time. It's about being able to execute directions verbally on the field at the time, swing for the fences, and be a little bit adaptable. All those things are out the window. Any retesting for athleticism times, out the window. So this has thrown the entire process out the door. Now, the good thing is that the Chiefs have a very, very astute and well-recommended, well-recognized scouting department. Headed, obviously, by Brett Veach, who started there, Mike Borgonzi, Ryan Nutt, everybody in that group has a very good reputation around the league and has shown themselves to be someone that will put in the work. That actually helps the Chiefs because at the end of the day, in the overall evaluation, the film is going to be the biggest chunk. Is it 80% like it used to be 15 years ago? I don't think so. Is it still over 50%? Yes, it definitely is. Now, whether the athleticism, the mental makeup, the upside projection that goes into every single prospect, those are all bits and pieces of the puzzle that make up the other percentage points. But the Chiefs having such prowess at the scouting level allows them to fall back on that. And I think that does lead them back to some things about being able to find guys with upside that they can develop, especially at tight end / wide receiver position, that makes them not preclude them from doing some kind of selection in the draft, but doesn't make them have to look at it as a primary replacement, somebody that can take snaps and make an impact in 2020, because if Sammy Watkins isn't there, that does make the priority for wide receiver much higher. And I think the possibility of Watkins returning with Demarcus Robinson in the mix actually has gone up, together with the extended nature of what we've seen from this negotiation. And honestly, the whole COVID virus thing has to change priorities for some people, I'm sure. Is there a sense by maybe some free agents that at this point, having maybe the guys who went in the first wave of free agency, it was still not as drastic as we see now? Does that make some free agents that are still left on the board, like Sammy? I mean, Sammy's not a free agent, but in the situation, like Bashaud Breeland, like Sammy Watkins wanting to stay rather than wanting a release, does that make them more apt to want to stay where they are, where things are familiar? I don't know. It could be. But I do feel that having the entire crew back, I think, is probably a plus for Sammy. I think that's probably something that he feels, if he can recreate last season, feel like he was going in the direction that he wanted to go, and that's something that he'll be aiming for again. So I feel like this whole process, and again, with the Chris Jones trade extension / franchise tag hanging out there in space looming, that obviously would make a huge difference too. But right now, it seems like the Sammy decision and what everything is hinging on, and $177 is not enough to do anything that you can't start to want that $14 million in cap relief from the Sammy contract. So maybe this spurs also that, hey, we have another wide receiver. If you want to stay, you got to come down. This could move some of the negotiations around and yet still let them have draft options at the position or a like position that they can use as additional weapons. There are plenty of guys out there. And if you saw over the weekend a couple of my videos on RGR, very specifically addressing just how strange this particular offseason has been because of this whole epidemic. Please go back and check that out. It's back from Friday, and it was just kind of a raw rambling of my thoughts. But in the end, it comes down to everything is unique about this particular draft class, this particular offseason. So I'm apt to discount moves less and less, meaning that I won't be surprised by pretty much anything at this point, because there's been so much change in priority, so much change in what teams are able to do or want to do. The known quantity in even free agents of yours that you weren't particularly excited about keeping has changed now, because they know your system. They can come in. They don't need OTAs to understand what's going on, especially at the wide receiver position. It allows you to hit the ground running next season quicker, because even if the draft is held in April, we're still talking about possible lockdowns now nationwide. The president announced through April 30th. So it's not like you're going to have the guys in the next 2 days like they usually do. There's not going to be the season ticket holder events at Arrowhead to introduce your new draft picks. That also means that there's going to be a delay in off-season activities. Yes, you can get guys' playbooks, of course. That's electronic. It's pretty easy. You even drop ship an iPad if you need to. That doesn't get you coaching on the field in OTAs. And so even if it were to come off, and I do hear speculation that it may be postponed, I just don't feel that it's as apt that a new draft pick is going to be able to make the impact that McCall Hardman made last season. I don't feel it's anywhere close. And so the known quantity you have in Demarcus Robinson and the extra effect that it has in maybe helping Sammy Watkins decide to take a price reduction, a salary reduction, and stay in Kansas City, I think those are all positives. I think they're all what's going on right here. I'm very interested to see how it all works out. And we should know something eventually. This is going to be a very interesting month, especially the next 3 weeks. If we continue to run up and there's no announcement about delay in the draft, you are going to hear a lot of chatter about moving around in this particular draft for the sheer aspect of not having been able to do enough preparation across the league. So that's where we stand on a Monday afternoon. Hope you guys are comfortable at home, and I'm sure going a little stir-crazy, but I hope that this helped and that you can enjoy your time. Listen to more podcasts, check out more YouTube, read the Athletic Matrix over at rogueapc.com. There's a discount code if you want to use it, LOC20. Get you 20% off of the Athletic Matrix, available right now at rogueapc.com. Hope you guys have a good day. Stay safe out there, and we'll be back with you tomorrow. Thanks for listening today, and we'll talk to you then. Ryan Tracy is the founder of Rogue Analytics and the host of RGR Football on YouTube. Follow him there. Chris Clark is a senior analyst at ChiefsDigest.com, where you can get his work. Rate and review at Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform.